Oh, Shift! You're listening to the O Shift podcast.
One of my top 5 concerns. How do we make bets that last for more than 12 months? So my first concern is trust. How do we earn it? How do we keep it? And more importantly, in how do we earn it as fast as possible? We have to solve problems, whether using AI or no, within the workflow that our customers, our users are currently in.
Today, I'm joined by a good friend, Vinod Kumar, the CEO of Cynthium AI, a founder who's lived sort of on both sides of the world, from big enterprise players like Demandware, Salesforce, now in his role as a startup founder. And so he's in the middle of fundraising, and so he's taken time out of his busy schedule, I'm sure, to speak to us today about how do you balance things like speed and stability and experimentation. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Rick. This is a true delight. A long-time listener, first-time guest.
Thank you so much. I guess why don't we start? I hinted at a little bit of your background. Tell me a brief snippet about Cynthium, what spawned your interest in starting the company, and I guess how your career history sort of played into that.
Sure, yeah. So the genesis of Cynthium essentially is rooted in the angst of being a digital commerce leader these days. Right after COVID hit, we all experienced this amazing digital transformation technology bubble. In hindsight, it was a bubble. During that time, we weren't quite sure how things were going to transpire, which led to sort of an exponential increase of complexity, operational complexity, that made up digital commerce operations. Suddenly, commerce leaders were looking at an exploding set of technology tools as part of their stack. All the while, margins were under an increasing amount of pressure. Yeah. Conversion rates were softening. For many e-commerce leaders, it was the first time in their careers they were actually experiencing negative conversion rate growth for the first time. So there was a lot of many people were in very unfamiliar circumstances. Right around the 2022-23 timeframe. This is around the time when a group of us, we had already sort of formulated an idea, a thesis on where e-commerce was going, but we sort of formally started interviewing people in the industry to understand what was happening and how we could help. The path leading to that formation of the group was all rooted in Demandware, Salesforce, Commerce Cloud. From a career perspective, I got my start in e-commerce back in 2010 when I joined Demandware as a customer success manager.
Wow.
I lasted all of 6 months in that role. One of the most difficult roles to do. For all the CSMs out there, you are amazing
Hats
people.
Off to you.
Very underappreciated, but super critical role. I lasted all of 6 months in that role. But I spent 12 years in that group. Before the IPO, after the IPO, and after the acquisition by Salesforce. And with those 12 years were evenly distributed between developing the product, the platform, in product management capacity, and launching new brands, helping customers succeed through various professional services, customer success type roles. So half of it was spent in the field, half of it with engineers and the product team. So I had developed a good understanding of what it takes to build a platform of this nature, of this type, as well as what does it take to help mid-market brands, enterprise brands build and run a successful commerce operations. So around the 2022 timeframe, when the digital transformation hype started to plateau, we realized that there might be an opportunity here for a net new company to help commerce operations, brands and retailers figure out how to sort of navigate these complexity. Around that time, ChatGPT was entering the zeitgeist, and we were starting to sort of play around with, what is AI? How can AI be useful? Midjourney came into being, DALL-E came into being. And we slowly realized through experimentation, through prototyping, that there's something here where these LLM-based advancements that we're seeing in the market can actually help simplify commerce operations, help brands and retailers grab margin back that they've lost, and hopefully also bump up the conversion rate softness that they had experienced in the preceding years. So that was the basis for formulation of Cynthium. Unbeknownst to us, what we had started to develop was essentially agentic ways of doing things for commerce, where merchandisers can do things in ways where part of the decision making could be offloaded to a software. And these decisions were not deterministic. These decisions were probabilistic by nature. And 2 years into the journey, we realized that what we were actually building was a set of agentic merchandising systems. So that's what Cynthium is today. Today, Cynthium is an agentic merchandising engine that enables merchandisers and marketers within e-commerce organizations to leverage AI to offload the redundant work, the manual labor of their external systems, things that cannot be done, things that are very inefficient at human scale, offloading them to algorithms to do the job for them.
That's super interesting, and it sounds like you've been a little bit. You had the advantage of building the company at the time of these early ChatGPT and these other models, which is sort of like freeing, but also in some ways scary because it's changing so quickly.
One of my top 5 concerns. How do we make bets that last for more than 12 months?
5 concerns. So let's start there. Like, what are your top 5 concerns?
Well, my top concern is trust. You know, even my reflecting just my own personal journey of how much I use the likes of ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, etc., even DeepSeek and others to help me in doing my work, and put that I think that helps me develop a little bit of empathy, helps me put myself into my user's shoes, and see from their eyes in terms of what do we need to do as a company to earn their trust so that they can offload their responsibilities, even a tiny bit, onto the systems that we're building. So my first concern is trust. How do we earn it? How do we keep it? And more importantly, this brings to my second concern, in today's environment where technology-based moats are almost non-existent, trust is probably the biggest moat we have now. How do we earn it as fast as possible?
I would love to hear your answer to that question.
Oh, I'm going to figure it out. I'll let you know. Well, it's very simple. As you know, do what you say what you do.
Right. That hasn't changed in the world of AI.
That hasn't changed. No, it hasn't changed at all. If we say that the AI system will help you optimize your search landing page, then it has to. If it causes a drop in search conversion, then we didn't do our job. The AI component didn't do its jobs, and therefore candidate for losing trust. So things like that. The simple things that we call hallucinations are actually trust eroding signals at the end of the day.
Yeah. So let's keep pulling on this thread. What are some of your other concerns?
Well, my second concern is, like I mentioned, technological advantages are quickly becoming the road to commoditization is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. I feel like today with tools like Cloud Code or even business user friendly tools like Lovable, features and capabilities are easy to reproduce. Once you see something, once you have a visual of something, and once you have the ability to describe something in natural language, in English, without having an understanding of how to translate that natural language description into code, it can be translated into code, into systems in a straightforward manner. I'm not saying that anyone from the street could just walk in and launch software applications. We're not there yet. But for people who have some basic understanding of how software works, architecture, design, engineering principles, and so on. Maybe you just don't know how to write Java code anymore, or you're not caught up on TypeScript. It doesn't matter.
Right.
These coding agents that we have today can replicate, at least get you from idea to MVP pretty quickly. So that makes the earlier decades fundamental business building principle of invest today to build SaaS to then monetize tomorrow. That tomorrow, that runway of monetization is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, shrinking. So previously held principles of how we fund a software company, how we build software company, how we measure the economics of the software company are all changing. And one thing's for sure, the commoditization road is shortening. So my second concern is, how do we
get around that?
Navigate it.
Right.
It's a given. It's going to happen.
Right.
It's a given. How do we keep ourselves agile?
Yeah. And as CEO, I mean, one of your biggest jobs is deciding what to prioritize within the company. And that includes your adoption of AI. And so you've mentioned a single metric that you've focused on. Can you talk about that a little bit, what that is?
Yes. I'm fortunate enough to have a team of experienced, really, really sharp and smart individuals who all believe in the vision and are aligned in the mission. So the decision of leveraging AI is pretty much federated across different functions. But as the CEO, I am responsible for making sure that our ability to leverage AI for the advantages of both product development and distribution are reflected in our economics. And one of the metrics that does that really well for us is ARR per employee or dollar per headcount, however you want to see it. Because what is happening today is...
Talk about what our ARR for employee is to you. Like, why is it so important to you?
Yeah. So just for background, ARR is annual recurring revenue. Irrespective of how many customers you have, how many logos you have, it's the total number of committed dollars you have coming in. And the economics of a startup is essentially it's a human resource intensive business model, right? Unlike a coffee shop, I bring that up because I own two. Unlike a coffee shop where there's 30% of your cost is in COGS and about 35% is your human resources. In software, it can be anywhere between 70, 80, 90%, depending on your business model, obviously. So in today's world, however, especially in a startup world where the original model was invest today to reap the benefits tomorrow, because the tomorrow aspect is shrinking, how much do we want to put today and how much runway do we have left in tomorrow depends on how efficient we are today to be able to reap the margin in the future. So the efficiency of today is measured by how many people do we need to generate $1 in revenue, or $100, $1,000 from the market. So previously, 10, 15 years ago, a startup would raise a seed round of a couple $1 million, hunker down for about 18 months, build software, do an MVP, prove that someone will actually want to buy it, and then immediately pivot to Series A and then figure out how to scale it. And once Series A hits, then end of Series A, they prove product market fit, go to Series B to throw fuel on the fire, go to Series C or figure out an exit plan. But today, seeds are looking like Series A's. By that, what I mean is
totally agree.
Right? But the
totally
quantity
agree.
of the volume of dollars generated.
There's $7 to $10 million. There's $7 to $10 million at least.
Well, so that $7 to $10 million is not happening in the vacuum. The expectation from the investment community is also that you, who's raising a seed round, behave like Series A, which means you figured out your internal efficiency model. Which brings me back to per employee. So these conversations, these ideas that were reserved for companies that were in the market to raise an A round are now happening in the seed round.
I've even seen investors say revenue is required for pre-seed, which, by the way, it didn't used to be a category, so it makes sense that would
shift too.
They push down.
Yeah, the label doesn't make any sense anymore.
Right. Yeah. By the way, what's before seed? I don't know. It doesn't make. I've never. It's pre-seed. Yeah, it's pre-seed.
Well, have you heard of seed strapping?
Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating. And so, do you think any founder out there is AI optional anymore?
No. I'll be disheartened to see technology founders who think AI is optional.
Yeah.
Today, especially in this current set of circumstances where all the horizontal models that are currently available are so broad, so generally applicable to so many daily, regular purpose, general purpose use cases that any startup could think of ways to accelerate and expedite their own internal work processes and make it more efficient by leveraging LLMs. Again, going back to coffee shops, it doesn't have to be a tech startup for all reasons, right? Today, you have food service businesses that are using image generation models to create their social media presence.
Yeah.
Right? So even their workflow is getting compressed and collapsed. Why wouldn't any CEO, a startup CEO, think AI is optional?
No, it makes sense. I mean, I think as you think about your metric, ARR per employee, what lens does that give you and which departments you started with? Or did you just start all of the departments at once in terms of adoption of AI? By departments, I mean marketing, sales, product, technology, customer service, and customer success. And finance and HR too, by the way.
The way is, so in hindsight, like thinking back to the last 12 months to 18 months when we became AI centric to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
I think our product development efforts and product distribution efforts sort of started manually and independent of one another because there was no need for them to be tied to the hip. They could be decoupled and they could be pursued independent of one another. Now that I think about it, I think our product development efforts start first because GitHub Copilot came first. One of the first clear utility of just autocomplete itself was a big deal. Just go tab,
right,
and you're there. But so that was on the product development side. We started with that. On the distribution side, before we jumped on the call, I just showed you our own personal N8N instance where we are implementing workflows that help us with the content creation. But from a distribution perspective, we decided that all one-to-one account-based management, account-based marketing efforts will happen as non-AI and as 100% human as possible. Not because we thought that was the right thing to do, because we thought that the current systems don't necessarily give us the ability to do it while retaining trust in those conversations. So we carved out all the things that we would do in one-to-many or one-to-all type use cases. We tried to look for leverage in using AI. To my point, our content strategy. We have an amazing content strategist, and he essentially figured out that of all the models that are available out there, Perplexity probably serves our needs best because our content strategy is very much research oriented. It's deeply seeped in actual research. So we don't churn. If you look at our blog, for example, we don't churn fluffy content. Everything has some extent research into it, embedded into it. Everything has some utility value associated to it. So much so that because we use that strategy, today, if you go to ChatGPT and if you ask for recommendations on agentic merchandising, chances are ChatGPT will recommend Cynthium. Why? Because we've invested in content. And being a startup, how do we invest in quality content? even though we have such a small team, we leverage AI heavily. We leverage our AI workforce heavily.
One of the things you mentioned in our conversation earlier was, and I think one of your worries is you're leveraging these models as soon as they come out. So like GPT-5, which is, they're pulling back a little bit on, but, obviously it's still going to go forward. Within just a few hours of the release, how do you actually operationalize within your company that kind of responsiveness?
Yeah, you need to have people who are open to it. For example, my co-founder, my CTO, Peter, is amazing in the sense that he's so open to experimentation. Before I could turn to him and ask him about GPT-5, he had a local instance of one of those open source models, the two that they released, running, and a few tests were running already. So you need people who are open to that. And this is my third concern. How do you build an organization where people see and view these AI technologies as true augmentation, um, friendlier sort of technologies that augment who they are and what their work is, and not see that as a risk or a threat. Even if they see threat is more of a concern, risk can be mitigated. Threats, I don't know what to do about them. But having people who have the mindset, who understand, who have some amount of experience to understand that this is not all rainbows and unicorns. There are some issues and risks here, but still, it's important that we figure out how to make it part of a strategy. And that is very important. As a small startup, we were fortunate enough that the team that's currently in place is very much AI friendly, in the process of becoming AI native. But as we expand, how do we keep that? How do we retain that as part of a culture? That is a concern. And that is something that I find myself constantly thinking about.
Yeah, so you're speaking, I think something that's on the mind of every founder on the planet all the time, which is values, culture, hiring, which is ultimately the foundation of a business. Clearly, you need to put your customers first, but if your employees, it's your employees that are doing it. If you have disgruntled employees, that's not going to lead to a great outcome. Have you found good questions, conversation topics you can have with potential new hires that could help uncover if someone, how do they view AI? Are there thought starters you've used in the past?
In this context, I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. Um, as an industry, we've leaned on casework exercises to determine um, the experience and the knowledge level of a candidate. And depending on the function, depending on the job, taking an example of something that you would lean on on a ChatGPT or a Claude or Perplexity to produce, and asking the candidate to sort of execute a piece of work using AI of their choice, and then explain back how they produced it, where they see pros and cons. That generally works. So a case-based approach where these tools are openly available, and there's really no, for example, if it's an interview question, and if something that we need to see them use ChatGPT to create, we could quickly deploy a temporary user, have them do some work, even seed that project that they're going to be working on with starter knowledge, with starter information, so that all that is baked in, and really see how they produce the outcome that they will be producing in their job. I think that approach should work when it comes to hiring, when it comes to assessing a potential future employee's potential to add value to the
so it's not that
organization.
it's not that different than how it used to be. And now they just have smarter tools, and you're just judging the expanded set of tools that they should have access to and know how to use.
Yeah, it's full expectation to actually use it. Same holds for, you can pick any job function, marketing, the ability to figure out, can you connect your HubSpot to your ChatGPT and navigate your account base from there? If it's a UI designer, not only Figma has native AI capabilities, but Can you actually connect Figma to V0 and produce a fully functional MVP instead of just a mock-up given a use case? So things like that can easily be done.
Yeah, I mean, even within a company like yours, who is so steeped in AI, it's hard to keep up with all the changes because each model has its own changes, and then there are players that are sort of in the fringes that now. Grok 2 years ago wasn't on anyone's roadmap, for instance. DeepSeek 2 years ago wasn't really on a lot of people's roadmaps. Um, what do you recommend people do to keep up?
I wish I had a good answer for this. I don't think I do. But the path we picked was we picked our tool set at the beginning, and we put faith on the producers of the tool that the pace at which the market evolves, each foundational model provider, each tool provider will have to keep up with evolution, and we just anchored ourselves to that. For example, um, today for building UI mockups, there are, at least to my knowledge, there's more than a dozen tools available, right? But V0 was one of the first ones. But after Bolt came out, after Lovable came out, after even Builder is doing something apparently, came out, we decided to stick to V0 because of the Vercel connection. V0 is from Vercel. Vercel is core to the architecture. Bolt may have figured out how to deploy an MVP, but it's only a matter of time because V0 runs on Vercel. We're sure they will figure out a better deployment modality. And surely they figured it out. And within 3 months of others doing it, they had a nice deployment process baked in. When GPT-5 came out, GPT-5 announcement happened. Within 30 minutes, when one of our team members logged back into V0, there was a model pop-up, GPT-5 arriving in. And there was a counter, like 30 minutes. I was counting down. So we had to make some bets because it's not possible to just jump from tool to tool to tool because
it's not efficient.
And then there's some amount of stickiness that these tools have inherently. So that's how we did it. If someone else has figured out a better approach, please let us know. We're all ears.
I mean, you're describing really like typical software adoption process, no different than HubSpot itself or other SaaS tools.
Exactly. And that brings us to the fourth concern, which is workflow. Work happens in workflows. And we, as problem solvers, we have to solve problems, whether using AI or no, within the workflow that our customers, our users are currently in. Let's take an example. Canva. Love the way Canva infused AI into what they do. They did not launch a new product. They did not shoehorn. They did not push their users to do something else, but they very intentionally built AI acceleration capabilities within the workflow that was built in Canva. And, the results speak for themselves. AI adoption of Canva features skyrocketing. The question is, do these tools help, as company builders, do these tools help our workflow? And what can we learn from them to make sure that when we build our product and when we build AI first, AI native merchandising agents, how do we make sure that those agents work within the workflow of our users without having to force them to adopt something new, without having to push them in a completely different direction?
It's very meta, Vinod.
Well, I hope meta is useful.
This is great. Do you build in rules for how your product and engineering people think about that? Are there guardrails, or how do you think about maintaining those user workflows? Because similar to your own employees, you can't spook users in particular because they're the one with the checkbook. Or the crypto
Engineering.
wallet, if we're going,
Ooh, can of worms. Let's not go there. Small team. We don't have. We haven't gotten to a point where this is an issue. I'm sure this will be an issue, and I'm sure before we get there, we will have some sort of internal agreement and have to navigate it. But given a small team, on the engineering side, we don't have that issue. On the distribution side, slightly bigger team. So, like for example, the person who runs content strategy, right? He came up with this massive 2-page prompt. Nurture and evolved over a course of 6 months, right? Very substantial, almost to the point that we would consider that IP, right? And that prompt is now available to everybody who is even remotely connected with participating in our content strategy. So that prompt essentially is a way for us to standardize.
That's fascinating.
How we speak without trying to homogenize everybody's language. Everybody brings their point of view, but the prompt standardizes how that point of view is translated in a way that feels like it is a Cynthium point of view.
Makes sense. And that evolved organically itself.
Yes. Because we realized that it actually is, one, it's detrimental for each one of us to have our own way of leveraging AI for content generation. And B, when we were doing it, we all sounded very different, very disconnected, in fact. So there was a need to sort of standardize a few things, and the prompt was a great way of doing that. So now we are thinking, okay, we have a ChatGPT account, you all have your own projects. Here is a standard prompt that you want to put in your system instruction for the project that will make sure that you have the right guardrails within which your project can unfold. And within that, whatever you do, it's up to you as individuals or as owners of the function. But here are the guardrails. Those guardrails are prompts that live as system instructions inside your ChatGPT project.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's fascinating, especially as a small team. How do you come up with some guardrails that won't disrupt your team? In a bigger organization, you have bigger problems. You have more resources and more things, more cats to herd. You've worked inside of a big company in the past, and big companies in general have one big problem: inertia. This is the way we've always done it. People are very comfortable. They want to come into their job because they're feeding their families. If they disrupt their own job, it's not really accretive to their career all the time. They could get whacked on the head by their bosses. But still, innovation companies are innovative. Innovation can happen. So how do you encourage those sort of green shoots, call them, within a larger company and bring them together?
Yeah. My experience with Demandware and Salesforce has been interesting. Demandware was a mid-sized organization, perhaps, when we got acquired, but after the Salesforce acquisition happened, we were 40,000 strong, and now, I don't know, it's 75,000 strong, maybe. So speaking to, and as you know, I'm still closely tied to that ecosystem. It's a very meaningful part of both my personal and professional network. So we talk a lot. That's what that means, right? And I'm starting to see patterns in my conversations. I'm starting to see patterns around what are some of the effective and efficient ways to move such a big ship like Salesforce. And I see three people sort of belonging into three groups emerge. One are these individuals or rank and file employees, if you want to call them that, who are entrepreneurial, who are really plugged in, who like to try new things. And organizations like Salesforce are not necessarily very rigid. They don't like put you in a box and say, hey, you have to do only this. You get some level of freedom in doing other things. And even in your, they call it the V2 mom process, even your annual planning process, you can identify the things that you want to accomplish at your personal level that may not necessarily be tied to the organization. There's still some level of freedom available there. Point being, within the rank and file folks, there seems to be a group of individuals who are very entrepreneurial, if you could call them that, open to trying new tools, open to figuring out how these new tools could sort of help them in their own jobs. Some altruistic reasons, but many of them are essentially, hey, can I use this to actually build my own career in an organization like Salesforce? And those types of individuals need to be identified, nurtured. Those side projects can result in really meaningful revenue generating product opportunities in the future. So that's one group. The other group, these are leaders in the organization who are looking ahead, trying to see 2, 3, 4 steps ahead in the industry and trying to figure out, okay, I see these changes happening in the industry. Most of the time, these individuals have P&L ownership, they have headcount ownership. They need to figure out how to make their own organizations grow more efficiently or faster or whatever. Are there tools and are there technologies available that we can leverage to make that happen? And that comes top down. And then there's this third group of people, irrespective of whether they have the title of a VP or the title of an individual contributor, who are essentially resistant to change. Not frivolously, always. Sometimes that resistance comes with a rationale.
Right.
The rationale being, we are responsible for making sure that the ship doesn't sink.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't want you to punch a hole in the hull. Right? So trying to sort of figure out how to make these three groups connect and work well together is the challenge. If you happen to have been an organization where the top line leadership is very forward looking and they're open to experimentation, they're open to figuring out how these technologies can be used for the purpose of attaining whatever your annual goals are, phenomenal. Latch on to them, give them the resources that they need, and just let them run, because chances are you already have a whole bunch of individual contributors who are already excited about these technologies and already are maybe 1, 2, 3 steps ahead in figuring out how to do that. And they can be the fuel to the fire. But can't forget this third category. People who are safeguarding your existing position. You got to help them see the future, but in a way that shows them that the risks that are there, there's a plan to manage and mitigate those risks.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the pattern I'm seeing emerge.
So what's the pattern like? Let's say you're in a situation where the holdouts are actually the ones that hold the purse strings, because those two things seem to go together sometimes, because you want to keep paying your employees, you don't want to punch a hole in the hull, which often means you're protecting your existing business model. Have you heard any patterns emerge about how to bring these people along the journey? Like, how do the experimenters influence the resistant?
I haven't seen a pattern emerge yet, but there are some signals that I'm seeing in the market. There's no specific pattern, though, at least from my perspective. The strongest signal is outside in, customer ask, customer need. This particular situation that we are in with LLMs and AI, the noise is so loud.
Right.
The inevitability of this is so clear that you should be, as the holder of purse strings, it should be fairly straightforward to extract customer signals that trigger the purse strings holders to have a conversation on the subject matter.
Right.
Yeah. So the one thing that seems to work is our customers, especially the customers who pay us the most money,
Right.
want this, need this, and are expecting us to see us do something. I mean, think about this. Forget large technology companies. You listen to so many investor calls. By the way, I thoroughly enjoyed your assessment of Walmart. Um, how many times are investors asking about what
Yeah.
a company's AI strategy is,
Yeah. Over and over.
right? So if you, as an individual, whether you're an individual contributor or a leader, but you necessarily don't have the buy-in of whoever's buy-in is required, you have just have to do a little bit of signal farming to be able to at least
Right.
earn the right to sit down with the budget holders to have this conversation.
No, it's fascinating. I think using customers as your advocates for change, I think, is always a smart strategy. I don't care where you are, and it's not just about AI; it's about any idea, right? So, keeping the end goal in mind, building from the outside in, um, I think there's a lot to be learned there.
Yeah, even in our case, we're a small startup, but one of our customers wanted to explore a specific way to support conversational shopping, not general broad strokes paintbrush, but a very specific way that really appealed to their brand. Um, and it made total sense. We did not have that in our backlog. The signal was clear, the expectation was right there, uh, the opportunity for additional ARR was right there. Why would we say no? Yeah. So, so I think customer driven, demand based prioritization is probably a good way to go.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is a good place probably for us to wrap in terms of um, helping customers on your journey, helping customers convince company leaders, and being a leader yourself from adopting change. Are there any last words you'll have for CEOs that maybe aren't as far along the journey as you are? I mean, imagine yourself in your career 10 years ago in Demandware and ChatGPT just came out. Now what? Like, what are you advising your CEO network groups today?
Distribution and trust has never been more important than today. Um, so figuring out distribution first is probably more important. If I were starting Cynthium today, what I would do is I would take the use cases that we already have software for, I would divide them into much smaller chunks, and I would see if I can just bolt.new it or cloud code it to get initial distribution. Because without distribution, so the more we travel down this path, I have this feeling that distribution is going to be the biggest moat ever. So I would start there first
So, like
instead of
sales and
starting
marketing, how to figure out how to prototype quickly, but develop your sales and marketing muscle very strongly.
develop your thought leadership muscle, form a community around the subject matter that you're trying to solve. Talk to people like you and figure out what's happening, what's not happening. Start figuring out how to add value back to the community even before you've written a single line of code by contributing your opinion to the industry, perhaps creating some white papers and distributing them to your network, and really build an audience, build a community around the problem that you're trying to solve before you even bother creating some technology around it.
Yeah. No, I think it's such good advice. I hear from a lot of people sometimes my calendar is pretty public. And so sometimes people I don't know who maybe shouldn't want to talk to, but I just talk to them anyway. They're like, hey, I'm in the middle of Montana and I'm starting an e-commerce business and I'm looking for a supplier. And I'm like, stop looking for a supplier. Start looking for a community that you can
Yep.
inspire.
Exactly.
And if you don't have distribution, then you shouldn't start an e-commerce because you don't have an edge. Because anyone can find a product, just like anyone could develop a prototype. And so I think this is a super interesting thought you've had. And so I would love to keep fanning the flames there.
Yeah. I think distribution and trust are the two biggest moats. Whatever you can do as an individual, as a startup founder, to earn that first, I think that would be the first step. It's like turning the whole startup concept on its head. Instead of producing something to sell, figure out who you're selling to, build a relationship first, and then decide what you want to make for them, being the approach. But anyway, thank you so much for inviting me on this podcast, Rick. Like I said, true delight. Long time listener, first time guest. I hope this is valuable to your listeners.
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting to me, and so thank you so much, Vinod, for coming on. And look, I think your story really shows that not chasing everything, but keeping track of the fundamentals. People buy things from individuals that they know, like, and trust, and forever will it be so, even in the age of AI. And so wrestling innovation and trust is important. If you're wrestling with these kind of concepts inside of your company, let me know. Hit me on LinkedIn. It's a direct message. I'd love to hear your story and maybe featured on the show too. So thank you again. Thank you, Vinod.
All right.